The galaxy had grown used to seeing Earth as nothing more than a small blue world. To the great empires that ruled the stars, Earth was weak, broken, and unworthy of notice. For years, humans had been watched, measured, and judged as a species that should kneel rather than stand. The day came when the Empire finally spoke with no more patience left in their voice. The ultimatum was delivered across every screen, every channel, every ship in orbit. A cold, metallic voice thundered through the networks. Earth must kneel. Your world belongs to the Empire. Refuse and you will be burned into silence. The message played on repeat, echoing over cities, towns, and remote villages. For the first time in history, every human across Earth was forced to hear the same words. Fear spread faster than light. In the government halls of Earth, leaders gathered in silence. Their faces were pale, their voices broken. The Empire's fleet was already on its way. Thousands of warships, larger than any human creation, were crossing the void. The images alone made stomachs twist with dread. These were not ships meant for exploration. They were weapons, floating fortresses carrying the power to crush entire worlds. Ordinary people filled the streets in protest, shouting in confusion and despair. Others hid in their homes, gripping loved ones close. Every channel carried debates. Should humanity surrender to save lives or resist and face destruction? No one had answers. The shadow of the Empire hung heavy over every thought. The Empire's ultimatum was not just a demand. It was a declaration that Earth had no choice. They had faced countless species before, and each had bent under their iron rule. To them, humanity was nothing different. But in the silence of those halls, a whisper passed between a few leaders who did not tremble as much as the rest. They looked at each other with hidden understanding. They knew something others did not. For decades, away from the eyes of the galaxy, humanity had been working. Quietly, in places where no starlight touched, something had been built. A secret kept so close that even most of Earth's own governments did not fully know. Only a few leaders carried the weight of that knowledge. Still, fear filled the air. One leader slammed his fist on the table, his voice cracking. "We cannot win. You saw the images. They will crush us like insects. We must kneel." Another leader leaned forward, his eyes sharp. "And what if kneeling means we are no longer human? What if kneeling means chains forever?" The debate raged on, echoing across the chamber. Outside, the people demanded answers. Children cried as parents whispered lies of safety. Soldiers stared at the skies, watching for the first flicker of invasion. The Empire sent another message. This time it was sharper, crueler. A holographic figure appeared above every city, its towering form casting shadows over the ground. Its voice dripped with contempt. "Your time is short. Kneel before the Empire or watch your world burn. You have 3 days, 3 days." The countdown began, ticking in silence across every screen. On the first day, panic ruled. Markets collapsed, armies prepared, and the skies were filled with chaos. On the second day, despair spread like disease. Families buried treasures, prayed to old gods, and prepared for an end they could not stop. But on the third day, something changed. A signal moved through channels that were never meant for public eyes. Deep in space, beyond the reach of common sensors, systems activated. Engines that had been silent for years began to roar to life. Black hulls shifted in hidden docks and weapons charged in darkness. No one on Earth saw it. No one in the galaxy expected it. But the ones who carried the secret knew humanity had not been idle. The ultimatum had come, but humanity was not as weak as it appeared. On the final night before the Empire's fleet was due to arrive, the world held its breath. Families stayed awake, staring at the stars. Soldiers loaded weapons they knew would barely scratch enemy hulls. Leaders prepared speeches they feared might never be heard. But in the void beyond, shadows moved. Black ships, massive and silent, began to shift position. The people of Earth did not know it yet. The Empire did not see it yet. But something waited. Something built not for surrender, not for peace, but for the one choice humanity had left: to rise or to die. The ultimatum had been given. The Empire believed Earth would kneel, but in the shadows, humanity's answer was already moving. The ultimatum still echoed across Earth, but deep in the shadows, a different story was unfolding. While the people cried and while the leaders argued, something hidden began to wake. For decades, secret plans had been set in motion. Humanity had always known the galaxy would one day come knocking. The Empire had ignored Earth for centuries, but the warning signs were always there. Quietly, Far from the eyes of other civilizations, humanity built what no one believed possible. In the cold darkness of space, where even the brightest stars looked faint, hidden stations existed. They did not appear on any map, and no Empire scout had ever found them. These stations were more than factories. They were fortresses of steel built into asteroids, hidden behind gas giants, and buried deep inside frozen moons. Inside them, people worked in silence. Engineers lived and died there, never returning to Earth, their names erased from history. Soldiers trained in zero gravity, fighting in simulations of battles against overwhelming alien fleets. Every part of the hidden project was designed with one goal: survival. The ships they built were unlike anything humanity had ever shown to the galaxy. Dark, sharp-edged, covered in layers of black armor that drank in light. They were ghosts in the void, ships made for ambush and destruction. And while the Empire laughed at humanity's weakness, these ships waited like wolves in the shadows. Back on Earth, fear ruled. Governments continued to debate surrender. New messages came from the Empire mocking humanity's silence. Kneel or face the storm. This is your final warning. But far beyond Earth's skies, the storm was already being prepared. In one of the hidden shipyards, Admiral Cade stood before a vast window. Before him, a giant warship floated in the void. Its black hull was alive with faint blue lights, engines humming like the breath of a beast. Thousands of workers moved like ants across its surface, sealing plates, testing cannons, charging reactors. The Admiral's face was hard, carved by years of secrecy. He spoke quietly to his officers. The time has come. The Empire thinks we will kneel. They will soon learn the truth. Humanity has teeth. The officers saluted, their eyes filled with both fear and fire. They had trained for this day, but training and reality were two different things. Still, they knew they carried the weight of Earth's survival. Messages flashed across hidden channels. Silent codes moved between stations. One by one, massive black warships came alive. Weapons charged. Shields warmed. Engines ignited. The fleet had been hidden for too long. Now the veil would soon be lifted. On Earth, no one yet knew. Families still prepared for the worst. News stations broadcast the Empire's threats. Children asked their parents if the world would end. Even the soldiers of Earth's public armies felt hopeless, their weapons looking like toys against the Empire's titans. But in the blackness of deep space, humanity was no longer weak. Humanity was ready. The Empire believed Earth would kneel without a fight. They believed humans were fragile, small, and afraid. That belief would soon be shattered. In the final hours before the Empire's fleet was expected to arrive, the hidden admirals gave their order. "Prepare the armada," engines roared. Black ships slipped from their docks. Massive vessels, each larger than any human city, drifted into formation. Smaller escort ships circled them like hunting dogs, their weapons glowing faintly. They did not make noise. They did not announce themselves. They moved in silence like shadows with purpose. Back on Earth, the countdown continued. The Empire's fleet was already approaching, their weapons armed, their confidence unshaken. To the galaxy, Earth was finished. To the Empire, humanity was about to be erased from history. But in the darkness, the truth waited. Humanity was not weak. Humanity was not broken. Humanity had prepared in silence for this very moment. The silent fleet was awake. And when the Empire arrived, the shadows would strike. The Empire's fleet came into view like a storm on the horizon. Their ships were titans of metal and fire, stretching across the stars in endless rows. Each one was armed with weapons that had crushed countless civilizations. To the galaxy, the sight meant doom. To Earth, it meant the end was near. Billions of humans watched from their homes as the fleet drew closer. Screens showed alien warships moving with terrifying precision, their glowing engines painting streaks of light across the black sky. On Earth, silence fell. There was no celebration, no resistance, only waiting. The ultimatum's deadline had ended. Earth had not replied. The Empire wasted no time. Their commander, sitting on a throne-like chair inside the largest flagship, gave a single order. His voice was sharp and cold. "Strike." The first shots tore through orbit. Human satellites burst into flames, their remains burning as they fell through the atmosphere. Space stations shattered like glass under the Empire's weapons. Entire networks went dark in an instant. On Earth, fear turned to screams. Soldiers could do nothing but watch as everything they had in orbit was destroyed in seconds. The Empire wanted to make a point. Resistance was hopeless. But then, something strange happened. As the Empire's fleet pressed forward, their sensors began to pick up faint signals. At first, they dismissed them as static, the dying cries of human satellites, but the signals grew stronger. Shapes appeared in the void. Shadows at first barely visible, as though the darkness itself was moving. One officer reported in alarm. "Unidentified contact, sir. Dozens, no, hundreds. They're not ours." The commander leaned forward, his eyes narrowing. Impossible. Humanity has no fleet. But the shadows were real. They drifted out of the blackness, their outlines sharp and alien. Yet they were not alien. They were human. The Black Armada had arrived. The first warship emerged from the void, its massive frame blotting out the stars. Its black armor gleamed faintly with the reflection of distant suns, its engines glowing with silent power. More followed, wave after wave, until the Empire's fleet found itself staring at an enemy they had never imagined. Panic rippled through their ranks. "These ships, they are human." "But how?" Admiral Cade's voice finally broke the silence of Earth's channels. His message was short, calm, and heavy with fire. "To the people of Earth, stand tall. To the Empire, humanity kneels to no one." And then the first strike came. The Black Armada moved with terrifying speed. Their weapons were silent until they fired, massive beams of energy cutting through the Empire's front line like knives through paper. Alien warships exploded in bursts of flame and debris, their proud formations breaking apart instantly. The Empire returned fire, but the black ships were ghosts. They vanished into the shadows, reappearing at angles the Empire could not track. Every time the aliens thought they had pinned them, the Armada struck again from the dark. On Earth, people cheered through their tears. They had expected to die, but now they saw fire burning in the sky. Human ships hidden for so long were fighting for them. Children pointed at the heavens, shouting with joy. Families clung to each other, daring to hope. But the battle was not easy. For every Empire ship destroyed, human warships took damage. Some black vessels burned, breaking apart in silence, their crews vanishing into the void. The Empire was massive, powerful, and relentless. Yet the difference was clear. Humanity was not fighting for power or conquest or pride. They were fighting for survival. For every life on Earth. For their right to stand as free people beneath their own sky. The Empire commander roared in fury as reports poured in. Ship after ship lost, entire wings destroyed. He slammed his fist into his chair, his voice shaking with rage. They were supposed to be weak. Where did this fleet come from? No one answered. His officers looked at their screens in horror as more black ships appeared, rising out of the void like an endless tide. The first strike was not just an attack. It was a message. Humanity had been underestimated. Humanity had been mocked, threatened, and cornered. But in the darkness of space, humanity had prepared, and now the galaxy would learn, Earth does not kneel. The void burned. Where once there had been silence, now fire and wreckage drifted across the black. The Empire's fleet, proud and endless, was locked in chaos. And at the heart of that chaos, humanity's hidden fleet cut through the stars like blades. Explosions flashed in the distance, lighting up the faces of soldiers on Earth who watched from screens. Each flare was a ship dying, torn apart in silence, the debris spinning into the endless dark. No sound reached Earth, but the sight alone shook billions of hearts. The Empire had expected a quick victory. Instead, they found themselves bleeding. Their mighty ships, each one larger than a human city, were being torn apart by an enemy they had not believed existed. Human ships did not fight like theirs. The Black Armada moved in sudden strikes, appearing out of nothing, hitting hard, then vanishing back into shadow. Alien weapons fired into empty space again and again, chasing ghosts that never stayed in one place. But the Empire was not weak. Their ships carried weapons that had ended entire civilizations. As the battle grew, their fury became clear. Beams of energy tore across the void, hitting human warships with brutal precision. A black cruiser vanished in flame. Another split in half as its engines exploded. Admiral Cade stood in his command ship, his face pale under the red light of warning signals. Every loss was a wound. He could feel the lives of his soldiers slipping into the darkness, but his voice never shook. Hold formation. Strike when they expose their flank. Remember, Earth is watching. His officers obeyed, their hands moving quickly over glowing controls. Every strike mattered. Every choice would decide whether humanity lived or burned. On Earth, the people who had been ready to surrender now stood outside, staring at the night sky. They could not see the details of the battle, but they could see flashes, bursts of light like stars being born and dying within seconds. Each light meant blood. Each flash meant sacrifice. Children pointed, believing the sky itself was fighting for them. Parents wept quietly, whispering prayers to ships they could not even name. For the first time, humanity saw itself not as small or broken, but as something greater, fighters in the dark. The Empire commander watched the battle from his throne of steel. His ships were falling, his ranks breaking. Rage twisted his face. This is impossible. They are humans. They are dirt beneath our boots. His officers shifted in silence, fear spreading through them like poison. They had believed victory would be easy. Now defeat hovered in the distance like a shadow none of them dared to name. Then came the turning point. A squad of human warships slipped behind the Empire's front line, unseen until it was too late. They targeted the Empire's supply vessels, the massive carriers that held fuel and ammunition. One by one, the ships erupted in fire, their destruction shaking the entire fleet. The Empire reeled. Weapons went dark. Engines slowed. Chaos spread. Admiral Cade's fleet pressed the advantage. Black warships emerged from the void, firing in perfect rhythm, every blast hitting like thunder. Alien cruisers shattered under the weight of the assault. The Empire's proud formation collapsed into a storm of burning wrecks. Still, humanity paid a price. A black dreadnought, one of the largest in the fleet, took a direct hit to its core. Its lights flickered, its hull cracked, and then it exploded in silence, scattering fire across the void. Every soldier in the Black Armada felt the loss. Every human watching on Earth felt their chest tighten in grief. But the fleet did not stop. They could not stop, because this was more than a battle. This was proof. Proof that humanity was not a weak species waiting to kneel. Proof that in the darkest moment, they could rise higher than anyone expected. As the Empire fell back, retreating into the safety of distance, the stars around Earth burned with the remains of the battle. Fire spread across the void, glowing like embers in a black sea. On Earth, cheers erupted. People shouted into the night, their voices raw, their hearts alive. For the first time, they believed in victory. For the first time, they saw hope shining against the dark. But Admiral Cade did not smile. His eyes were cold as he watched the retreating Empire. He knew what others did not. This was not the end. The Empire would return. They had been humiliated, and humiliation was something they never forgave. The battle had been won, but the war had only begun. And as the fire faded in the stars, the question remained: how long could humanity stand before the full wrath of the Empire fell upon them? The battle was over, but the silence that followed felt heavier than the war itself. Wreckage floated through the void like broken bones, glowing faintly as flames died out. Alien ships that had once stood in perfect formation now drifted lifeless, their hulks torn open and scattered across the black. And in the middle of it all, humanity's hidden fleet held position. Their black hulls, scarred and battered, still glowed with power. Engines burned steady, weapons still warm. They had survived. Against every prediction, against every arrogant declaration, they had survived. On Earth, the reaction was instant. Streets filled with cheering crowds. People embraced strangers, tears streaming down their faces. Children shouted into the sky as though the stars themselves could hear them. Humanity had stood against the Empire and lived. For the first time, the galaxy was watching Earth not as prey, not as a weak world waiting for conquest, but as something far more dangerous. Admiral Cade stood inside the command deck of his flagship, staring at the field of burning wrecks. His officers waited for his words, their faces pale from exhaustion. They expected him to smile, to claim victory. Instead, his voice was cold. This is only the beginning. The Empire will return, stronger, angrier, and they will not forgive what we have done here, no one argued. Every officer knew he was right. Humanity had shown its teeth, but in doing so, it had drawn the full attention of a predator that ruled the stars. Across the Empire's vast territories, word of the battle spread faster than light. Whispers began in marketplaces, in dark taverns, in slave mines, in palaces. A single message echoed in 1,000 different voices. Humanity fought back. For some, it was a shock. For others, it was hope. Species that had lived under the Empire's iron grip for centuries now wondered if chains could truly be broken. If Earth could resist, maybe they could too. Seeds of rebellion began to stir in the shadows of far-off worlds. But in the Empire's throne world, the news was received like poison. The Emperor himself sat in silence as reports played before him. Ships destroyed, fleets broken, commanders slain. His golden eyes narrowed with fury. He did not shout. He did not rage. His words were quiet, but they carried the weight of doom. Bring me Earth, burn their fleets. Break their people. Leave nothing. Across the galaxy, the Empire's war machine began to stir. Factories roared to life. Docks overflowed with new warships. Armies marched in endless lines. Humanity's victory had not destroyed the Empire. It had provoked it. On Earth, the people celebrated, but the leaders knew the truth. This was not the end of their struggle. It was the start of something far greater, and far more dangerous. In secret meetings, plans were drawn. The Black Armada could not return to hiding. Their existence was now known. Humanity would need allies, strategies, and sacrifices even greater than before. The war had changed them, but it had also changed the galaxy. One child, standing on the roof of a broken building in a small city, pointed at the sky. She saw the faint glimmer of human ships returning to orbit. Her voice was soft, filled with wonder. They came back for us. Her father placed a hand on her shoulder, his face worn from fear and relief. Yes, and they will again. The Black Armada drifted in silence above the world they had sworn to protect. Their black hulls caught the light of the sun, shadows stretching like guardians across the sky. For now, humanity was safe. For now, the Empire had been stopped. But Admiral Cade's words lingered in the hearts of all who listened. This was only the beginning, and somewhere in the void, beyond the reach of human eyes, the Empire gathered its strength. Entire star systems rumbled with preparation. The galaxy trembled, not because Earth had survived, but because Earth had awakened. The Black Armada was no longer a secret. Humanity was no longer ignored, and soon every star would know, Earth does not kneel.